We have a great panel today. We're going to be talking about the streaming platforms, and we're going to cover it from a couple different angles. We have some folks from the platforms themselves. We have some content folks. We have someone from the agency world, and then we have some folks from the monetization side as well. So we're going to kind of cover this topic in a few different ways for you, and hopefully that sounds pretty good. So we're going to get started. We're going to ask everyone to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll just start to dive right in. So Dan, do you want to kick us off and give us a little bit about you and your background, and we'll get going.
Sure. Welcome to CES, everyone. My name is Dan Reese. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the U.S. advertising business at Televisa Univision, which is the largest Spanish language content creator in the world.
Thanks.
And Univision.
How long have you been there?
Approaching 5 years.
Wow. All right. Welcome. Courtney, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Howell. I am the head of agency development at Samsung Ads, and I am 1 year older than you, so I've been at Samsung for 6 years.
Wow. Welcome. Ira, please.
Hi, my name is Ira Rubenstein. I am the Chief Digital Marketing Officer for PBS, Public Broadcasting Service. Just so people don't think I'm being rude, my phone's on my lap because I am deaf with cochlear implants. And so I have real-time captioning, thank you to CES. And then other captioning, I always like to advocate for captioning. So if you need it, it's there, or you can have the cart service. But I'm really happy to be here. I oversee all of our digital strategy, marketing, biz dev for distribution on our local stations.
And you love PBS.
Absolutely love PBS.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Ira. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Livingston. I head up ad product strategy at Fandom, largest gaming and entertainment publisher, and while also not nearly as, dare we say, altruistic and important to the world as PBS, I've been at Fandom for just over a year.
Terrific. Melissa?
Hey, Melissa Berger. I'm with Digitas, which is a part of Publicis Group. I've been there for almost 14 years. Wow. Who would have thought? But I've kind of bounced around the Publicis Group, but it's great. I'm Chief Solutions Officer, thrilled to be here. I feel like we've already been in Vegas for 49 days. But here we are, just starting out, right, Mark?
Ready to head home already. Brian, please.
Great, thanks. Brian Norris, Chief Revenue Officer at Scripps, where I oversee all revenue across all of our national networks, including ION and Bounce. And then we also have over 60 stations in over 40 markets, including Las Vegas here.
Awesome. Welcome. Well, welcome all of you. And we wanted to just get a quick sense of who we have in the audience. So quick raise of hand if you're a marketer working with a brand. Few. What about tech companies, tech startups? Bunch. All right. And media business folks, content, lot of content folks. Okay. They're going to hit you guys all up for distribution shortly. So, and any lawyers in the house? Like last year we got a bunch of lawyers. Okay. You guys can head towards that. There's always one. Well, welcome everyone again. We're going to start with asking the panelists a question that they all get to answer, and then we'll kind of bounce around based off of some of the responses, and we try to make it pretty interactive. If you do have a question, just save it for the end. We'll see if we have time to get to audience questions, but you probably will have to ask those after the session's over. We have a kind of tight window to get through things. So with that said, I'm going to ask Dan to start things off. So Dan, the platforms are evolving. They've made a lot of progress in 2025. How do you see growth happening for you guys into 2026, and how do you define growth for the business?
Well, I guess we're talking about streaming, which is, we run a streamer called VIX, which is largest Spanish language streamer in the world. I think growth for us, I think the streaming business requires lots of different revenue streams, whereas other businesses that some of us may have worked in the past were a little simpler. I think that growth for us is going to come through all the channel subscribers. Global and expansion into many more countries, I think, is a critical driver, as well as at Televisa Univision, obviously adding more revenue through new clients and new brands is critical.
Yeah, and briefly, you also touched on partnerships, right? When we were prepping.
That's right. I prepped and then I forgot my own my own prompt.
I'm a fan of partnerships, so I'm a big believer in that. So I wanted to make sure to call
Yeah,
that
look,
out.
I think that you're starting to see a lot of partnerships between streamers, both on the consumer acquisition side, growth marketing, and as well as on the advertising side, to start looking at ways to make it a lot simpler and less fragmented for advertisers and for consumers. And I think that'll accelerate in all facets this year.
Terrific, thanks. Courtney, what about you? How do you
Sure.
guys look at defining, the platforms and what growth looks like for you?
Yeah, at Samsung Ads, we sit at a pretty interesting intersection because we are both a distribution platform. We have our own content, Samsung TV Plus, which is our free ad-supported streaming. And then we also sit on a pretty significant amount of proprietary data specific to us here at Samsung. So I think when we think about growth and what the future, looks and feels like, I think over the probably emergence of the last 5 to 7 years, you've seen an influx of content. So everything from premium-driven content to social-driven content, influencer, creator-driven content, and we almost have too much content now. Content has become a commodity. So I think how we're thinking about the future in growth here at Samsung is the attention economy. So now will be about how do you capture the attention of the viewers on our screens, on the streaming platforms, and how do you do so in a thoughtful way? So I think the growth for Samsung and Samsung TV Plus will really come from almost a passive kind of lean back to a lean forward, where now it will be, appointment TV, hyper curated for you, which will be a combination of interactivity and gamified driven experiences and very personalized experiences for you, and working on a whole bunch of things for the future. So I think that's where growth will come from us, is capturing the attention of our consumers.
Terrific. Ira, what about for PBS?
Sure. I always like to say PBS is kind of one of the biggest digital secrets out there. People don't realize the sheer volume of streams that we're doing, roughly between 400 to 500 million a month. And the popularity of PBS content, be it on traditional broadcast, we're still in the top 7 Nielsen in terms of channels there, but as well as on digital channels, be it YouTube, be it on our own app, be it on the other platforms that we're on, in multiple ways, including some fast channels on Samsung, fast channels on Amazon. We have our local station live linear channels across multiple platforms. But, in terms of actual growth, I think for us, it's helping get our local stations on more of these free platforms, so that in hyper-localized experience for viewers, for free without ads, of course. And then as well as getting the right content in front of them by leveraging the data and what I expect to see is some rather sophisticated discovery tools emerging out of televisions around AI. But in terms of popularity for content as being one of the only, we have another media here, it always comes down to the content. And most recently, maybe some of you watched Ken Burns' The American Revolution. If you haven't, it's not too late. It's available on the PBS app. That, for the first time, PBS broke into Nielsen's top 10 most streamed shows. And I think it just shows that we have the platforms, we have the capability, and then with the right content, we can get to the right audiences and actually make an impact.
Terrific. Yeah, we're going to touch on some of how you do that a little bit later. Sarah, please.
Yes, so at Fandom, again, we're the largest gaming and entertainment publisher, so tons of content about your favorite games, TV shows, movies. I'd say the biggest thing for us in thinking about growth is through all of this content, we end up having the largest fan interest and passion graph. And what that's enabled us to see is to identify trends as they're emerging. So take something as big from last year's like K-pop Demon Hunters and being able to identify that as it was starting to build before it hit mainstream. So for us, it becomes continuing to optimize that underlying like predictive algorithm around identifying what will be trending. And then when you juxtapose that against what's going on with all of the streaming platforms, thinking about how they're diversifying their content, we're thinking about more and more of this niche content, like Note of Imagine, like anything K-pop related going mainstream, and also them diversifying into short form content, more and more gaming content, more and more IP licensing, where you have TV shows based on video games based on TV shows, and then us being able to see those trends as they're happening and seeing the platform sort of continuing to evolve their content formats. And then us, of course, as a publisher, turning that into better targeted ads. Because it all comes back to ads.
We'll definitely get back to that in a second. Melissa.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I'm kind of here for that and brand loyalty part in the title here. So I'm actually not a media person. I'm a loyalty and CRM person, been it my whole career. Mark and I have done a few panels. And so when you think about things like Disney Plus Perks, right, we have a loyalty program that came out for a streaming platform. The competition for attention is insane right now. So from an agency standpoint, at least kind of on my side of loyalty, we're talking to a lot of the platforms around how do we keep people engaged? How do we go beyond just whatever the next show or next piece of content is? The partnership piece is huge. We're actually just recently brokered a conversation between one streaming platform and another brand to talk about what a partnership could look like. So I think all these brands are really understanding that kind of the data sharing and the clean rooms and being able to connect the dots for a consumer is going to benefit both them and the customer experience. So that's been a lot of like kind of my experience on my side. Obviously, as a global media buyer, we buy ad space with all of these friends as well. But you know, a lot more what we've been talking about is like, how do we just keep people engaged beyond just what show they're going to watch next? And I think it's an interesting challenge with the attention chaos that's happening.
Definitely. We'll get to that shortly too, because there's such a like, I guess, dichotomy of like youthful viewers or younger viewers, and then sort of, you know, the Gen Xers and so on.
Us.
Yes.
Ouch.
Ouch. I'm one of the Gen Xers, so it's okay. Brian.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so for us, it's pretty simple. Like, I like to boil it down to content, community, and connection, right? So what better content is there out there than sports, right? Everybody knows that the path to getting advertisers on your side is going to be through sports. And so sports brings communities together, and it creates connection. And so we have intentionally tried to democratize sports, specifically women's sports, right? Think about the WNBA and the NWSL and all of those women's sports that you love every 4 years during the Olympics, but then you don't see them for another 4 years. We have purposely made those available to audiences across FAST. And so it might be, you might not recognize this, but if you've ever tried to watch a premium sport on FAST, good luck. Right, you have to pay. Everything's behind a paywall, and so we have intentionally put sports for free on ION, not just over the air, but across FAST as well. And so that for us on ION, that starts with women's sports, particularly basketball, soccer, track and field, volleyball, and women's college basketball. And so, you know, when you do that, you create wonderful connections within the community, and there's no better content. And so when all of those things work well together, advertisers will come as well as viewers.
Great, thank you. Brian, I'm actually going to follow up now with you on, we talked about this before, but like, how do you guys split between FAST, subscription, ads, paywalls? How do you guys view the world around that? And Dan, I'm going to come to you next on that.
Yeah, it's pretty simple for us. All of our linear networks are over-the-air broadcasts for free. And all of that content across our networks, our national networks, are free across FAST. So we get no subscription revenue for that content. It's all driven by advertising. And so what can we offer advertisers? I mean, first of all, engaged audiences, right? And at a time where audiences are getting older and older, especially in linear, FAST gives us an opportunity to service advertisers with a desirable audience. And it also, and our partnerships with these leagues gives us an opportunity to deliver much more than just a 15, 30, or a 60, right? We are actually able to storytell, to learn about these women and how they have and how they thrive as mothers, as entrepreneurs, as teammates, and we're actually able to storytell. So it's a very nice balance between the competition that's on the court or on the pitch, but it's also about being able to celebrate the richness of these athletes and what they bring to the table.
Terrific. Dan, coming to you, sort of same question. How are you guys viewing, content that should be on FAST versus it's blocked by a paywall or a pay-per-view or a subscription? How do you guys balance all that out?
Yeah, I mean, I think Melissa probably works on this a lot, but at this point, I think most of the streamers are pretty sophisticated in terms of how they're balancing that. Generally, you're following ARPU, right? You're balancing based on how you can most profitably bring an audience in and retain them, and so the sort of lever goes back and forth. Sports is a great example. We have generally the balancing between broadcast channels where the biggest sports events are happening and they are free, to all kinds of other games and opportunities for people to get more involved that are behind the paywall. Generally, when we are launching something, we'll launch it in front of the wall. We just launched, and probably the fastest growing new innovation that we have are called VIX Micros, which are micro dramas. They're literally 1 minute, 60 episode stories, like a telenovela, but they're a minute long each, roughly, sometimes 90 seconds. And each episode is just a minute, and you can scroll through them, and they're super addictive, and that's been one of the big sort of innovations. That's been out ahead of the wall, but over time, there are people, that's something that people are definitely willing to pay for, and so the vault kind of moves behind, and we'll launch exclusives behind the wall as well. Again, a lot of it is really trying to sort of maximize the investment in content, and there's not like a simple rule. Generally, it's a kind of wherever you can bring customers in through whichever door you can bring them in, and whatever retains them the best, and that changes quickly.
Got it.
Mike, if I may just add to that,
Yeah.
because at PBS, so we work very closely with our company joint venture, PBS Distribution. It's a joint venture between PBS and WGBH out of Boston, and their purpose is to generate revenue from the content to feed back into the producers, because a lot of their content's deficit funded. But through the partnership with them and their channels on FAST, what we're beginning to see is, of course, there's free content on the PBS app. Of course, there's content if you're a member of your local station. You can activate Passport and have access to the library. But what we're seeing is consumers are choosing where they want to find their content, and there isn't a lot of overlap. So the PBS distribution channels on Amazon Prime, be it the Masterpiece channel, that's a unique audience, and that's a different audience. That's what's coming to the app. So what we're trying to do is be in lots of these places where the consumer is, and what we're seeing is that it's actually coming back to the PBS app, and hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm going to quote something, but I'm looking at Andrea. We just did PBS distribution, did a deal with Netflix to license Grantchester older episodes, so a show that's a long running on PBS. And what we're seeing, I won't give the number, but we're seeing a double-digit lift on the PBS platforms because consumers are being able to discover it, and they're coming back to the PBS app where they can discover more. And I think we'll see the same thing be it on the FAST channels and elsewhere as consumers are deciding where they want to go to see the content. And it's our job at PBS to make sure they can find it, but also tie it back to their local station, because that's how the support for the system works.
That's great. Thank you. Kind of building on that, Courtney, can you comment on how you guys are starting to layer into all this in terms of, especially with the announcement around the gaming minutes and so on? So we'd love to hear how you're tying the brand aspect into this.
And I was gonna,
Yeah.
build upon that is that, the average consumer spends 11 minutes discovering and deciding what they want to watch. 11 minutes. Yes, well, it sometimes feels like longer, right? That's the average. But I think to your point that democratizing the content and ensuring that it lives absolutely everywhere, because you don't know what that touch point and entry, where that's going to be. So what we're thinking a lot about at Samsung is how do we curate hyper-personalized experience to each individual viewer? So if they would to watch a show or the PBS Fast channel within Samsung TV Plus, we could then curate that when they jump back into their TV to recommend, again, additional PBS content. Maybe it's like-minded content. But again, leveraging the tools at our disposal, AI, ML, and so forth, to ensure that we're actually collapsing that 11-minute discovery where it feels more personalized. When you turn on your phone or you log in any of your additional social apps, or just even the home screen of your phone is curated by you. It's a personalized experience. So imagine a world in which your TV screen is personalized just for you. And you don't necessarily need to do it yourself, but again, through AI, we're actually able to curate that personalized experience for each individual user. A lot of households have more than one person, so then also recognizing that it might be the dad, the mom, the child, the grandparent, and so forth. So again, really being able to hyper-curate all the rich content that is out there, but in a more personalized experience.
Quick follow-up on that. Are you doing that in partnership with the streaming platforms and the content providers, or are you doing this as just a Samsung service and we're just going to find a way to locate all the content anyway?
We have to be agnostic, right? Because we are the TV manufacturer. We're the largest TV manufacturer globally. We're the largest within America as well. So we need to, all of these great folks up here are our partners. So again, need to be equal and equitable to everyone. So it's really based upon the data, the set-top box data, the TV data, also ACR data, which is automatic content recognition. We basically are able to fingerprint the TV screen, so we see what users view, not only from a linear perspective, but also which apps they're jumping into, and it doesn't extend beyond that for of course, privacy and compliance. And then we also see what they're viewing on Samsung TV Plus. So again, it's basically based upon those 3 different data points.
Yeah. Dan, did you want to add to that? Okay. I was going to jump to Sarah. So Sarah, how are you guys thinking about monetization for what you guys do? Is it all ad supported, or have you guys looked at paywalls? And
We have not a paywall, but a registration wall, though everything is fully ad supported, both video ads and good old-fashioned rich media display ads, which interestingly, as even we all are kind of laughing at, work shockingly well because of the contextual relevance and because of, dare we say, the targeting overlay, where we're targeting it not only based on the context and the content, so someone's favorite show, but also overlaying some predictive modeling to identify what other shows people are most likely to be interested in, and then surfacing relevant ads there, both for endemic brands like gaming or entertainment, and just importantly for like your average CPG that wants to align with a certain type of fandom, because we know that brands that associate with things that you're passionate about, you're more likely to be interested in that brand. So all of that through targeting, and then being able to predict what's most likely to become relevant to help brands automatically stay aligned to whatever is most relevant for their audience without them having to worry about manually figuring that out. I think the other very interesting thing here that we see very much just by observing trends in gaming and entertainment is what Dan started hitting on with its short form content, be it the 60-second telenovelas, and just the general shift to shorter form content to engage, dare we say, that younger audience. And looking how what works extremely well on the social platforms, you have more and more streaming platforms starting to pick up to understand how do we take more and more of that attention. So you look at things that maybe once would have only been a long form content or a short form content only on social or on YouTube, and now seeing that type of content more and more on the streaming platforms, and by extension, be more and more interested in from a younger demo. that's something we're also seeing and is, I think, very exciting for 2026 plus.
I can build upon that. We've launched a series of about 12 different channels that are just that, driven by influencers, driven by creators. If you have your most famous or favorite scientist that's doing experiments on YouTube or TikTok or so forth, again, taking that shorter form content, expanding it to the big screen. So the vertical screen has now become the big screen in your home. And to your point, again, the authenticity associated with that creator and their audience is really translating on the big screen.
That's great. So it's interesting how you've all touched on the consumer in different ways, younger, older, and so on, using data and so on to understand their behaviors and how to best service them. Melissa, I want to come to you and kind of get your thoughts on just where is the consumer, the viewer in all of this, right? Because all of this is sort of happening for them, but like where do they factor into this? And again, kind of what's the difference between younger viewers and older viewers?
Well, it's interesting because, how many people in here have 3 or more streaming platforms that you already have signed up for, right? So our attention is all over the place. Imagine, like, Mark and I were talking before about, I was with my nephews. I'm an auntie for life over here, but, there's an iPad, a computer, a video game, and a TV, and they're all streaming on all 4 of them at the same time, right? Watching everything, or watching someone play a video game. Still don't get that, but sure. So I think what we're seeing is, like, from a consumer perspective, one is you have to be relevant. So you guys have talked a lot about personalization. If you're not, you're out. And, I've worked on a couple of these streaming brands and platforms over the years, and so many people, they do the 3-month trial, and then the cancellation at that 3-month point is very high. So for a streaming platform, and these guys can probably attest to the specifics of their brands, but to keep them past that point is a huge driver of like longer term loyalty. So I think that's where you're starting to see some of the like loyalty programs and perks and things coming into play, because yes, you want to be drawn in by the content and the storytelling, but there's always another distraction. So that's where, I think people doing these partnerships, trying to understand like what motivates the consumer to not only pick a platform, but to pick what show or piece of content they're watching is really important. And at Publicis, we have Epsilon, which has been great. It's a lot of data. So we're seeing where people are spending all their time, not just with that brand, with all the competitors as well. And that's been helpful to understand, the consumer. Obviously, we can't target younger kids yet, but we target their parents. So really thinking about like what's going to motivate them to continue to watch and go deeper. But it's complicated because again, they could be streaming on 4 platforms at the same time, and it's you're one unique user, but you're on all 4 at one time. It's complicated.
You described my household.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I know.
What's interesting is there's content that obviously has to get created, and there's lots of innovation there, like what you even described, Dan. But there's also innovation in ad formats and how brands that are supporting all this work, and innovation in the technology to help consumers find content. Brian, I want to start with you and just get your take on innovation that you guys are working on, and how do you view innovation across these different disciplines, from ad formats and supporting the brands to helping consumers to building from there?
Yeah, so if I take it back to looking at it through the sports lens, we were pretty much forced to innovate, right? So if you think about soccer, all right, there's not a lot of ad time in the actual competition. And so we were forced to innovate, and whether that means across the fast landscape, being able to create L-bars, being able to create picture-in-picture, being able to create shoppable moments, leveraging e-commerce technology to collapse that funnel in real time. All of those things are on the table for us. And advertisers love that we're on this journey with them, and that we are interested in innovating alongside with them. But and this isn't innovation, but one of the things that advertisers do love is that since we brought sports to our platforms, we've had no real incumbent advertisers. So good luck if you want to replace college football built by the Home Depot. That's never going away, right? And so we're able to not just innovate for these advertisers, but give advertisers who otherwise would not have a seat at the table the opportunity to be alongside these sports. And particularly those advertisers that sometimes get pushed to the side and marginalized from marquee premium events, we give them the opportunity to be at the forefront, especially in our local markets. And so what does that mean? Yes, we can do 15s, 30s, 60s, but being able to help them collapse the funnel by using commerce and shoppable technology, that is all there for them.
Can I
Dan?
make one?
Oh,
Oh, I'm
oh,
so
sure.
sorry.
No,
Just one quick comment. The shoppable commerce streaming made me think about last year, maybe it was the year before. We did a ROM commerce for Walmart, and everyone loves a Hallmark movie, me included. And it was a really interesting way to innovate, but it was from a retailer, and people could like shop through the different products within the romantic comedy rom commerce. But it was a really interesting, innovative way to think about how you drive sales in forget the ad side of it, just actual like product sales through a unique way of shopping. So that made me think of that. It was a really interesting, unique kind of innovation that I thought Walmart was kind of like ahead of the game on, doing a whole like short film on it.
Nice. Dan, how do you guys see innovation, and where are the areas of innovation for you?
Yeah, multiple. I would agree with Brian that sports tends to drive a lot of innovation, and one of the things that's happened in streaming, which was prior really a spots and dots type of platform where brands would look to do media weight there, but there wasn't a lot of content distribution, sponsorship, et cetera, primarily through fragmentation. Sports brings mass audiences, soccer for us and for Brian, brings mass audiences and allows brands to invest more beyond the spot and dot. I think streaming is an amazing platform for branded content innovation, and we're starting to see brands start to fund shows. So we work with them on that. We just struck a deal with Publicis for a couple of our big music award shows where they're helping to fund that. I think that you'll start to see a lot more from us, at least on the creator end. Vertical ad formats especially, so that content that's being made for one platform can start to show up in streaming. It is targetable, it is, you can control the distribution. It's really a fantastic platform for all those things, and I think that's really kind of nascent. And I would agree on the shopping side, that's really early stage too. There's really good experiments. It isn't scaled yet, at least not in the US. We are looking at our streamer having a wallet, kind of like a loyalty program, where consumers can unlock special episodes, brands can participate in that, so like virtual coins type thing. So I think all those things will grow this year. So I think that's all worth watching.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Ira, I want you to talk a little bit about what you guys
Sure,
are doing on
there's-
the discovery side.
Yeah, there's a lot of innovation happening at PBS, and there's a lot of AI being used, whether it's in the children's media side and the learning platform. But recently, we did some work on content discovery, partnering with AWS AI Innovation Lab and our innovation team at PBS, where built on Amazon Bedrock with the Claude LLM, we're doing metadata tagging at scale. And what you have at PBS on our platform is 300 local stations all uploading their own local shows. That all goes into our player, and we want to make sure people can find all that on top of all the national content. And so you can imagine 300 individual stations doing their own metadata tagging is going to kind of be a hot mess. By having the Gen AI do that for you and fill out hundreds of fields, we can then in turn power a recommendation engine, which is also powered by AWS Bedrock. And then that in turn will help discover and recommend content for viewers, be it either national content or local content. And it's all done for pennies on the dollar because the Gen AI is doing all the metadata tagging.
Nice. Thank you. Courtney, I want to come to
Yeah,
you.
I was going to say there was a lot of discussion around commerce, and we're doing a lot of innovation there, but two additional areas that I'll kind of touch upon that we haven't, which I think would align with some other folks as well, is gaming. I feel like we live in a gamified world. I mean, just think about your daily routine. Almost everything is gamified in some capacity. I think about, I live in New York City, I take the subway to work, and I'm consistently like, where do I stand on the platform? What particular car do I get in so I get out on the right door, which leads me to the right, exit? Just an example. On Samsung TVs, on our smart TVs, we have a platform called the Gaming Hub, which has over 6,000 free games for any Samsung user to utilize and play. We also have cloud-based gaming with partnerships with Xbox, Nintendo, and so forth. But we started to see a trend, right? When gamers are playing, they're highly engaged. They're very, highly leaned in. Often we're on 4 different screens, as shared earlier, and we're a little bit more leaned back and maybe not paying attention to ads. Well, our product and innovation team was like, well, what if we gamify the ad commercial, the ad break? So this past year, we launched a series of 12 different games. For example, something called The Six. So instead of watching an ad, you'll get a trivia game. So you just take your remote and you can play with your remote, or you can, respond by voice. And it basically gives you a tick down clock and it gives you a question. What condiment squeezes out of the bottle within 6 seconds, right? So instead of actually watching
Wait, what's the
ketchup,
answer?
it's ketchup. But so again, creating these fun interactive experiences, and then you can start to think about the future where maybe it's just on a trivia game. Well, we're approaching tax season. I've already started to get some of my tax items. So rather than watching an ad, what if you had a partner or a marketer own a break that says, okay, hey, put down your phone and actually use this 90 seconds to book your appointment with your accountant. Or, hey, you've actually been sitting on the couch, couch potato, get up and stretch, move your body, shopping and so forth. So many different unique cases there, and again, seeing positive results. And then the last one, you had touched upon music. We launched a partnership with the Jonas Brothers this year, who went on a global tour. We also hosted a special New Year's Eve concert from them as well. But we've launched a new interactivity tool that's called Fan Vote. So we're live streaming and airing the Jonas Brothers concerts throughout the course of the year, and then we give fans the opportunity to vote for what song they want to hear next. So again, just thinking of different ways to engage the consumer while they're watching TV.
Terrific. Sarah, quick thought on innovation from your end, and then
Yes,
we're gonna
and
wrap up.
actually just building on what Courtney said, it's interesting because while, again, on the publisher side, we see a huge amount around gamification in the form of having fans become more and more involved in their respective fandom. So in the game they love, in the TV show they love, in the movie they love. So be it a scavenger hunt, be it a quiz, where we see that is the biggest form of innovation in terms of that all, of course, being sponsored and surrounded by an advertiser, because again, it all comes back to ads. But that being the opportunity for advertisers to get the highest engagement and the best ability to align their brands with what their desired audience cares the most about, and by extension, like extending that goodwill and that fandom they have to that game, to that brand as well, and seeing upwards of, we hate to go to brand lift studies, but double-digit increases to brand awareness, positive brand recall, positive brand association. And it's really been the ad innovation through how can we, in a scalable, standardized way, integrate brands into those communities so that the fans can engage with the content, again, about about their favorite game or about their favorite movie and TV show, and have the brand come along for a ride in a very organic way. But it does come back to that community element that Brian hit on, and then also the gamification or just better forms of engagement.
Yeah, thank you. We're running out of time. 40 minutes goes fast here, so we're going to have to go to the lightning round here. And I was going to ask you all about Netflix and what's their strategy for 2026, but I think we'll skip that. And maybe just a quick comment on, and Brian, I'm going to pick on you first. How does storytelling in all of this change over time? And that's probably a loaded question, but can you give everyone think about quick little clip on how does storytelling evolve with this sort of evolution of the platforms?
I think the storytelling has to be directly related to the community that you're serving, and there has to be a connection between the platform, the community, and we're talking about advertising here, and between the brands that you're putting on the platform, there has to be some sort of connective tissue. And number one, it needs to be authentic, and it needs to be engaging.
Terrific. Melissa?
I think in this world of immediate gratification, when we used to have to wait a whole week for a new episode or an entire season, you were like dying for it, right? Now everything drops almost at the same time. So I think from a storytelling perspective, you still gotta drive that same like cliffhanging engagement, like into your point, the community you're serving. So I don't know, I think that's something I'll be interested to see if some streamers start like holding back some episodes, because we know that drives engagement and excitement across the board. So,
Terrific. Sarah?
I definitely buy that, and I think also it becomes more multi-format and non-linear to accomplish that. So you might be holding back episodes, and in between, you're going back to the world of digital shorts, but those digital shorts are much shorter, lower production quality, being distributed across different channels so that you're stretching the content so that you can hold back the more premium content for longer, and happening non-linearly, where we're seeing more like going back to co-streaming, going back to co-viewing, so more basically taking that content and continuing to stretch it.
Terrific. Ira?
So I'll go back to the audience and where the audiences are. I'll use an example of Frontline at PBS. Rainey Aronson, the executive producer of Frontline, has done an excellent job of bringing Frontline and quality investigative journalism to multiple platforms. And what I mean by that is that it's available, of course, on the PBS stations. It's available on the app. It's available on Doc's channel. But she's also been putting it up on YouTube, and where it has millions and millions of views there. And so the audience that finds it there. She's also done shorts, and again, for vertical video and for people that want there. But going back to your question about storytelling, it all comes back to what Frontline stands for, and that is best-in-class, quality investigative journalism, but telling the story in the format for the platform. And if people come to the others, great, but if that's where they want to watch it, then that's great too, because it still gets Frontline out in front of people and still gets PBS and their local station in front of people in that format where they're at.
Terrific. Courtney?
I agree with everyone here. I might go a little bit more, I guess, the future of storytelling, perhaps.
All right.
I think it probably comes down to a numbers game as well, in terms of the amount of content that you're able to produce. Content is very expensive to produce, particularly movies. So leveraging the day and age in which we live currently with AI, how do you leverage a successful show that you've created, leverage AI to then create, rather than waiting, to Melissa's point, for another year? Maybe you create series after series after series, but you do so in an economic fashion with AI. And then the other thing that I think might be interesting, are we moving towards a world in which there's co-created content?
Yeah.
So are the folks sitting at home, kind of going back to the fan vote, are they able to help kind of co-create or share the type of content that they might want to see?
Sort of choose your own adventure.
Exactly, and I think we're starting to see that with the emergence of some of the creator and influencer-driven content in channels. So those are my two. AI-driven content, so you can push a lot out for more cost-efficient, and then also co-creator-driven content.
Nice. Dan, bring us home.
Okay, I'll try. Go back to sports as innovation. I think the biggest thing you've seen change in storytelling is that there's now a different broadcast of a game depending on what you want to see. Monday Night Football does this. We do this a lot in soccer. We have different announcers, different commentary. You're now starting to see, as Courtney was saying, creators be part of it. We're going to do in September, we're going to do this with music, where we're going to do in 4 different cities large music festivals, one-day music festivals, all on the same day, where you will see a 3-hour broadcast special that takes the greatest hits and puts that all there of all that's happened that day. But you'll also be able to watch the different festivals via our streamer, and then you'll be experiencing all the creators that are at the different hubs on social and via digital channels. So I think that kind of like multi-angle, I guess, storytelling is going to be the big thing over the next few years.
Very cool. Well, lots of great innovation, a lot of great opportunities for all of your platforms and brands and partnerships. Thank you guys all so much for your insights today, and thank you guys all for being a great audience and participating. Big round of applause for Dan, Courtney, Ira, Sarah, Melissa, and Brian over there. Enjoy the rest of CES. We'll see you soon.